I thought I was just meeting my husband's business partner's wives for lunch. I never expected to be humiliated, insulted, and thrown out of an exclusive restaurant. But what these elite women didn't know was that my quiet husband held the power to change their lives forever. Stay with me because what happens next will leave you speechless. Make sure to hit that like button if you love stories about karma and justice. My name is Jacqueline, and I want to tell you about the day that changed everything. I'm what you might call a simple woman. I grew up in a small town called Millbrook, where everyone knows everyone, and the biggest excitement is the annual Harvest Festival. 3 years ago, I married William, the most wonderful man I've ever known. He's quiet, thoughtful, and has this gentle way about him that just makes you feel safe. When we met at a coffee shop in town, he was reading a book about business, and I was grading papers from my third-grade class. William told me he worked in business, something about investments and companies. I didn't really understand all the details, but I knew he traveled sometimes and worked from home a lot. We lived comfortably in a nice house, nothing too fancy, and I was perfectly happy with our simple life. What I didn't know then was that William was keeping a huge secret from me. He said he wanted us to have a normal life, away from all the chaos of his work world. I trusted him completely, so I never asked too many questions. One Tuesday morning, William came into the kitchen while I was making breakfast. He looked a bit nervous, which wasn't like him at all. "Honey," he said, sitting down at our little wooden table, "I have something to ask you." I turned from the stove, spatula in hand. "What is it?" "Some of my business associates. Their wives want to meet you. They've invited you to lunch this Friday at a restaurant downtown." My heart started beating faster. I'd never met anyone from William's work world before. "Really? They want to meet me?" "Yes, they do. I think it would be good for you to make some friends in the city." I was so excited I could barely contain myself. Living in our quiet neighborhood, I didn't have many friends nearby. The thought of meeting other women, maybe forming some real friendships, made me feel like a teenager again. "What are their names?" I asked, already planning what I might wear. "Catherine, Helena, Priscilla, Vivian, and Beatrice," William said. "They're all lovely women. I'm sure you'll get along great." I spent the rest of the week thinking about this lunch. I went through my closet about 10 times trying to find something nice to wear. I didn't have many fancy clothes, but I had a beige dress that my sister said looked elegant on me. I paired it with my grandmother's pearl necklace and my most comfortable brown shoes. William seemed a bit worried as Friday approached. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked Thursday night. "Of course." "Why wouldn't I?" I laughed. "I'm excited to finally meet some of your work friends' wives. Maybe we can become real friends." He smiled, but I could see something in his eyes that I couldn't quite understand. "Just remember, Jacqueline, you're worth more than all of them combined. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." I thought that was a strange thing to say, but I kissed him goodnight and dreamed about making new friends. Friday arrived, and I was so nervous I could barely eat breakfast. The restaurant was called the Sterling Club, and when I looked it up online, I realized it was one of those places where you probably needed a reservation months in advance. I took a taxi downtown, smoothing my dress nervously as we pulled up to the restaurant. The building was impressive, all glass and marble with a doorman in a crisp uniform. I felt a little out of place, but I reminded myself that these women had invited me. They wanted to meet me. Inside, the restaurant was even more intimidating. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and every table was set with more forks than I knew what to do with. The hostess, a tall woman with perfect makeup, looked me up and down before asking who I was there to meet. "I'm meeting Catherine, Helena, Priscilla, Vivian, and Beatrice," I said, trying to sound confident. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "Ah, yes, Mrs. Patterson's party, right this way." She led me through the restaurant, and I could feel other diners looking at me. I tried to ignore the feeling that I didn't belong here and focused on the excitement of meeting my new friends. Then I saw them. 5 women sat at a round table in the corner, and they were absolutely stunning. Catherine wore a sleek black dress that probably cost more than my car. Helena was in white silk that looked like it came straight from a fashion magazine. Priscilla had on a gold dress that shimmered when she moved. Vivian wore silver that made her look like a movie star, and Beatrice was dressed in a cream-colored outfit that looked impossibly sophisticated. They all looked up as I approached, and I saw something in their eyes that made my stomach drop. It wasn't warmth or welcome. It was judgment. "You must be Jacqueline," Catherine said, standing up. She was tall, with perfectly styled blonde hair and lips that seemed frozen in a polite smile. "I'm Catherine Patterson." "It's so nice to meet you all," I said, reaching out to shake her hand. "Thank you for inviting me." The other women introduced themselves, and I tried to remember all their names. They were polite, but there was something cold about their politeness, like they were actors playing a role. I sat down in the empty chair, feeling more and more uncomfortable. My beige dress suddenly felt cheap and shabby compared to their designer outfits. My grandmother's pearls felt like plastic costume jewelry. "So, Jacqueline," Helena said, looking at me with perfectly applied makeup, "tell us about yourself. What do you do?" "I'm an elementary school teacher," I said, trying to sound proud. "I teach 3rd grade at Millbrook Elementary." The women exchanged glances. "How quaint," Priscilla said, her voice dripping with something that definitely wasn't admiration. "And where did you and William meet?" Vivian asked, taking a sip of what looked like very expensive wine. "At a coffee shop in my hometown," I said, starting to feel defensive. "It was really romantic, actually. He was reading and I was grading papers, and we just started talking." "A coffee shop," Beatrice repeated, like I'd said we met in a garbage dump. "How ordinary." Catherine leaned forward. "And your dress, dear, where did you get it?" I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "I got it at a department store back home. It's nothing special, but I thought it was nice." "Oh, it's fine," Catherine said, but her tone suggested it was anything but fine. "I suppose not everyone can afford real fashion." The conversation continued, but it felt more like an interrogation than a friendly lunch. They asked about my education, my family, my background, and with each answer, I could see them judging me more harshly. "You know," Helena said, cutting into her salad with surgical precision, "we were surprised when William mentioned he was married. We all assumed he was still single." "Why would you assume that?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Well," Priscilla said, "in our circle, people usually marry within their class, someone who understands the lifestyle." I felt like I'd been slapped. "I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean." "Oh, sweetie," Vivian said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "You seem lovely, but you're clearly not from our world. The way you hold your fork, the way you speak. It's obvious you don't belong in William's professional circle." My hands started shaking. I looked around the table, hoping to see at least one kind face, but they were all looking at me with the same cold judgment. "I think you're being very rude," I said quietly. "I didn't come here to be insulted." Catherine laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. "Insulted? Oh, honey, we're just being honest. Look at yourself. Look at us. Do you really think you fit in here?" "William loves me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "That's all that matters." "Love," Beatrice said, rolling her eyes. "How naive. In our world, marriage is about compatibility, status, making the right connections. You're holding him back." "You're embarrassing him," Helena added. "Every time he has to introduce you to someone important, he's probably cringing inside." I felt tears starting to burn my eyes. "That's not true. William would never—" "Wake up," Catherine said, her voice sharp. "You're a small-town school teacher who doesn't know how to dress, how to speak, or how to act in polite society. You're an embarrassment to him and to all of us." Other diners were starting to look in our direction. I could feel their eyes on me, and I wanted to disappear. "I think you should leave," Priscilla said, not even looking at me. "This clearly isn't working out." "Yes," Vivian agreed. "Perhaps it's best if you don't try to join our social circle again. You're simply not suited for it." "And please," Beatrice added, "don't mention this lunch to William. It would only make things more awkward for everyone." I stood up on shaky legs, my vision blurred with tears. "I'm sorry I'm not good enough for you," I whispered. "We're sorry too," Catherine said coldly. "But it's better that you know now." I walked out of that restaurant feeling smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. The doorman who had seemed so impressive earlier now looked at me with pity. The taxi ride home was a blur of tears and humiliation. I kept hearing their voices in my head. "You don't belong. You're embarrassing him. You're not suited for it." By the time I got home, I was completely broken. I sat in my car in our driveway for almost an hour, crying and trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted to pack my bags and leave. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was holding William back. Maybe he deserved someone better, someone who could fit into his world. But another part of me was angry. How dare they treat me like that? I was a good person. I was kind. I worked hard. I loved my husband. Why wasn't that enough? Finally, I gathered enough courage to go inside. William was in his home office, working on his laptop. When he saw my face, he immediately stood up. "Jacqueline? What happened? Why are you crying?" That's when I completely broke down. I told him everything, every cruel word, every condescending look, every moment of humiliation. William's face grew darker with each detail. "They said I was embarrassing you," I sobbed. "They said I don't belong in your world. They said I should leave and never come back." William pulled me into his arms, and I could feel his whole body trembling with anger. "Those women," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "have no idea what they've just done." "Maybe they're right," I whispered against his chest. "Maybe I'm not good enough for your work world." He pulled back and looked at me with more intensity than I'd ever seen in his eyes. "Jacqueline, listen to me very carefully. You are worth more than all of them combined. You have more kindness in your little finger than they have in their entire bodies." "But they're right about one thing," I said. "I don't fit in. I don't know how to act in their world." William was quiet for a long moment. Then he took my hand and led me to the couch. "Jacqueline, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago." My heart started racing. "What is it?" "I haven't been completely honest with you about my work," he said, running his hand through his hair. "I told you I worked in business, and that's true, but I didn't tell you that I own the business." I stared at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean I own the company, and several other companies. I'm not just William who works in business. I'm William Harrison, CEO of Harrison Industries." The name hit me like a lightning bolt. Even in my small town, everyone knew Harrison Industries. They owned half the companies in the state. But that would make you a billionaire," he said quietly. "Yes." I felt like the world was spinning, but our house, our life, the way we live. "I wanted us to have a normal life," he explained. "I grew up with money, and I saw how it changed people, how it made them cruel and shallow. When I met you, you loved me for who I was, not what I had. I wanted to keep it that way." "So those women—" I started to understand. "Those women's husbands all work for me," William said, his voice getting colder. "Catherine's husband runs one of my subsidiary companies. Helena's husband is head of my legal department. Priscilla's husband manages my real estate portfolio. Vivian's husband is my chief financial officer, and Beatrice's husband is my head of operations." I felt like I was in a dream. "They work for you?" "They all work for me, and they have no idea that their wives just insulted and humiliated my wife." William stood up and walked to his desk. He picked up his phone and started dialing. It's time they learned who they're dealing with. "William, what are you doing?" "I'm calling an emergency board meeting for Monday morning," he said, "and I'm arranging a dinner party for tomorrow night. All 5 couples will be there." "I don't want to see them again," I said quickly. "You won't have to say a word," William promised. "But you will be there, as my wife, as the woman I love more than anything in this world, and they will learn exactly who they disrespected today." I watched my quiet, gentle husband transform into someone I'd never seen before. His voice became authoritative, his posture changed, and suddenly I could see the powerful businessman that he'd been hiding from me. "Mr. Patterson," he said into the phone, This is William Harrison. I need you and your wife at my house tomorrow evening at 7. It's not a request." He made 4 more calls, each one shorter and more commanding than the last. By the time he was done, I was staring at a man I barely recognized. "William," I said softly, "you don't have to do this for me." He came back to me and took my hands. "Yes, I do. You're my wife, you're the most important thing in my life, and no one gets to treat you like they did today." "But what are you gonna do?" He smiled, but it wasn't his usual gentle smile. It was the smile of someone who held all the cards and was about to play them. "I'm going to show them exactly what happens when they mess with the wrong person's wife." The next evening, I stood in front of my closet, paralyzed with indecision. William had told me to wear something nice, but after yesterday's humiliation, I felt like nothing I owned was good enough. William appeared in the doorway, holding a garment bag. "I thought you might need this," he said. Inside was the most beautiful dress I'd ever seen. It was a deep purple color, elegant and sophisticated, with a designer label I'd only seen in magazines. "William, I can't wear this. It probably costs more than I make in a month." "It costs more than you make in 6 months, he said with a small smile. "But you're worth it, and tonight I want them to see exactly who you are." He also brought me a jewelry box containing a necklace and earrings that took my breath away. "These were my grandmother's," he said. "She would have loved you." When I looked at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. I looked elegant, confident, beautiful, but more importantly, I felt like William's wife. At exactly 7 o'clock, our doorbell rang. William squeezed my hand. "Remember," he said, "you don't have to say anything, just be yourself." We walked to the door together and William opened it to reveal all 5 couples standing on our doorstep. The women looked confused and uncomfortable while their husbands looked nervous. "Please, come in," William said, his voice perfectly polite but somehow menacing. I watched as the 5 women took in our home with new eyes. Yesterday, they'd assumed I was some nobody from a small town. Now they were seeing the original artwork on our walls, the expensive furniture, the obvious signs of wealth that I'd never really noticed before. Catherine's eyes went wide as she recognized a painting in our hallway. "Is that an original?" "Monet," William finished. "Yes, it is. Please, everyone, let's go to the dining room." Our dining room looked like something from a magazine. William had arranged for caterers, and the table was set with china and crystal that I'd never seen before. The women kept exchanging glances, clearly confused about why they were here. "Ladies and gentlemen," William said once everyone was seated, "I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I thought it was time we all got to know each other better." Mr. Patterson, Catherine's husband, cleared his throat. "Sir, we're honored to be invited to your home. We had no idea you lived so elegantly." "I'm sure you didn't," William said, his tone still perfectly polite. "I prefer to keep my private life private, but recent events have made me realize that perhaps it's time to be more open about who I am." The women were all staring at me now, and I could see the recognition dawning in their eyes. They were starting to understand that something was very wrong. "You see," William continued, "yesterday, my wife had lunch with your wives. She was so excited to meet them. She came home telling me all about her wonderful afternoon." I saw Catherine's face go pale. "She told me how welcoming you all were," William said, looking directly at each woman. "How kind and friendly, how much you made her feel like part of the group." The sarcasm in his voice was cutting, and I could see the husbands starting to realize that something had gone very wrong. "But then," William continued, "she told me some other things that made me very, very angry." He stood up, and suddenly the gentle man I'd married was gone. In his place was someone commanding, powerful, and absolutely furious. "She told me how you insulted her clothes, her education, her background, how you told her she was embarrassing me, how you told her she didn't belong in my world." Catherine tried to speak. "Mr. Harrison, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No," William said sharply. "There's been no misunderstanding. You humiliated my wife. You made her cry. You told her she wasn't good enough for me." He walked around the table, his eyes never leaving the 5 women. "What you didn't know is that Jacqueline is the best thing that ever happened to me. She's kinder, more genuine, and worth more than all of you combined." "Sir," Mr. Patterson said desperately, "if my wife said something inappropriate—" "Your wife," William said, "told my wife that she was an embarrassment, that she should leave and never come back, that she didn't belong in our social circle." The room was dead silent except for the sound of Helena starting to cry. "Here's what you all failed to understand," William continued. "This isn't your social circle, it's mine. I own the companies you work for. I sign your paychecks. I decide your futures." He returned to his seat and looked at each man in turn. "Mr. Patterson, your contract with Harrison Industries will not be renewed. Your company will need to find new clients." Catherine gasped. "William, please." "Mr. Chen," William continued, ignoring her, "your services as head of legal will no longer be required. You'll receive your termination notice on Monday." Helena stood up, tears streaming down her face. "Please, my husband didn't do anything wrong." "Mr. Rodriguez," William said to Priscilla's husband, "your real estate management contract is terminated immediately." "Mr. Thompson," he said to Vivian's husband, "you're fired as CFO effective immediately." "And Mr. Brooks," he said to Beatrice's husband, "your position as head of operations is eliminated." The women were all crying now, and their husbands looked like they were about to be sick. "Please," Catherine begged, "we're sorry. We didn't know who she was. We made a mistake." William's voice was ice cold. "You didn't know who she was? She's my wife. That should have been enough. The fact that you need to know someone's wealth and status to treat them with basic human decency tells me everything I need to know about your character." "We can make this right," Priscilla pleaded. "We can apologize." "You had your chance to make it right yesterday," William said. "You chose to be cruel to a woman who had done nothing but try to be your friend. Now you get to live with the consequences." He stood up again. "Dinner is over. Please leave my home, all of you." As the couples filed out, each woman tried to approach me to apologize, but William blocked them. "You've said enough," he told them. "You've done enough." After they were gone, William and I sat in our living room in silence for a long time. "Do you regret it?" I asked finally. "The only thing I regret," he said, "is not telling you the truth sooner, and not being there to protect you yesterday. You didn't have to destroy their lives for me." "Yes, I did," he said firmly. "They destroyed something precious, your trust, your confidence, your excitement about making new friends. They needed to learn that actions have consequences." That was 6 months ago, and our lives have changed completely. William decided it was time to live openly as the successful businessman he is. We moved to a beautiful house in the city, and I left my teaching job to start a foundation that helps underprivileged children. The 5 women tried to reach out to me several times, but I wasn't ready to forgive them. Their husbands all found new jobs, though none as prestigious or well-paying as what they'd lost. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Catherine and Helena got divorced. Apparently, their husbands blamed them for losing their careers. I don't take pleasure in their misfortunes, but I also don't feel guilty about what happened. They made their choices that day at lunch, and William made his. As for me, I've learned that I am enough. I don't need designer clothes or perfect manners to be worthy of love and respect. I don't need to change who I am to fit into someone else's world. William and I are happier than ever. He's shown me his business world, and I've met many genuinely kind people who judge others by their character, not their bank accounts. I still think about that lunch sometimes, about how small and worthless those women made me feel. But now I also remember the strength I found that day, the husband who fought for me, and the lesson that sometimes the quietest people hold the most power. The simple woman they threw out of that restaurant wasn't so simple after all. She was loved, protected, and valued by someone who had the power to change everything. And sometimes, that's all the power you need. What did you think about William's revenge? Was it too harsh or perfectly justified? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of karma and justice, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.